Hey everyone, Yasin here, and welcome to another episode of Pointy Chins, where I take you through my art journey. Alright, so here I'm doing some drawings, as usual. I mean, obviously I'm doing some drawings, but playing with characteristics, like facial markings and things, it's something that I've thought that I kind of want in my work. I like this guy. He looks kind of funny. I like how thin the mustache is. So in cases like this, you go thin and horizontal. So you minimize the vertical, extend the horizontal, and it will look good. Also, focusing on making the features smaller, which is something I talked about before. And then here too, trying to keep big eyes, but sort of not humongous in terms of the difference between this and a real face, but shrinking the mouth quite a bit, and it doesn't look too bad. So what that tells me is probably mouths are a lot smaller than I think they are in my brain, and that's always important. This one's kind of cute, this bottom one. I like that. The eyes and stuff looks good. All right. Some of these don't look so great though. I think this one's from reference, but obviously stylized. Yeah, definitely this looks like it's from reference because it just is very different from the others. And I'm thinking a lot about proportions still. I mean, that's probably the biggest thing that I keep coming back to. And sorry if it's boring by now, but the reason is that it's just the most important thing, getting proportions right. And if you can get the proportions right, so proportions, form, anatomy, stuff like that, just super important. Much more important than things like, I guess, color. Even though color does make a huge difference, it's much easier to learn than proportions and things. So I suppose a good way of skipping all this is to just look at reference from artists who have proportions you like and copy it. But that's never worked for me, so I always end up doing things a hard way. And here, just playing around with contour again, trying to understand the form. So that's the other thing, perspective, form, and then also a bit of anatomy. And I think things are sort of getting better. I don't know what she's pushing. I just thought of doing a person doing something because I usually don't have people doing things. And then it's like, oh, what's she doing? Well, maybe she's pushing some kind of futuristic thing, and then it seemed stupid and it seemed off. Like in perspective, she looks like she's going this way, and this thing looks like it's going that way. Like it doesn't look like the correct perspective. Her leg looks pretty flat. I didn't capture that. Probably with overlap, I would have been able to capture this being more rounded, but as it is, it looks very flat. So I just added a shopping cart. Made it like oh yeah, you got all this tech, and I'm terrible when it comes to tech. I don't understand it. I don't enjoy drawing it, but I like when other artists can do it well. I always admire it. But as for myself, Here I'm trying to figure out stretched, curved bodies. So I'm thinking if I focus on the torso, then I can spend more time in improving it if I don't have to worry about things like the head because if I put in a head, I'll focus on expressions and different things. So in this way, I'm kind of isolating the important things, and yeah, I think it's somewhat good. Things that I'm trying to keep in mind are, for instance, the neck. It's not just a circle. It's kind of got more of a triangular shape. Here I've exaggerated it perhaps too much, but it is sort of triangular in the back, like it's flat in the back and then more comes to a point more in the front. So here it's getting quite a bit more scribbly. I'm trying to use things like circles and boxes to just make this more of a graphic thing. I don't know if this works because it kind of blends in with the bandana. In fact, it probably doesn't work, I guess. I don't know, maybe if there was like a white outline around this, it would be okay. And I'm trying to think in terms of like adding stuff like clothes, like a collar. And something I don't do, or I didn't do enough at this time, I'm trying to do it much more now, is to really, draw out the whole thing around the person's head, like the rim. If you draw the rim of a thing, it's much easier to build whatever it turns into, as opposed to trying to just draw this part and then draw this going back somewhere. It's like, just complete that shape as one shape and then break it down. I hope that makes sense. And here, playing around with more, I like this type of shape where you have like a skinny, more like a bald sort of, and then the hair pops out. It creates two shapes, which are quite appealing, I think, as opposed to just, if I had it where his hair just came out like that. It's not as interesting, I think. So things like that are important. So this looks like a lot of reference drawing, probably trying to brush up on my real anatomy, because the thing is, if you just draw from your imagination for too long, you end up making mistakes. You forget what real things look like, and it's not like these aren't stylized, because of course they are. Of course people don't look like this, but yeah, I figure, well, let's go back to the source and just draw from reality. But then, back to imagination. So I don't know what these are. This is not really following the form. It looks like this part of the helmet would be inside his face, which isn't good. This needs to go on top. So that's no good. This girl, I like her expression. And then more torso things. So I'm simplifying the rib cage like a box, and then the pelvis like another box. And this is something I saw an artist Rake use, REIQ, and I tried it, and it's like, yeah, that works well. So, poses, trying to have some foreshortening in there. I don't feel like this part seems sort of okay, but then this doesn't feel twisted enough. It doesn't feel powerful enough. And what I mean by that is, if you are going to throw a punch, you have like two extreme positions. One is just before you start throwing the punch, and the other is just when you finish throwing the punch. And this is kind of in between, so it doesn't look so intense. Like if her arm was more back there and she was really, twisting and gaining the energy to throw that punch, that would be more intense. Weird bird guy. Right. Don't know what I was doing here. I mentioned hard surface design is not my forte. And clearly it's like, oh, try drawing cars from imagination for what? You never do. This is not good. Not good. This one looks funny though. I very much look for the faces in vehicles. Kind of don't mind this one either. It looks kind of bored. But in terms of, does it look like a truck? No, I don't think so. But this is cool, this shark thing. Some nice foreshortening. Yeah, so that's just, these ones are done with one line. Like you start and then you just go and do the whole thing. I guess there's a second line for the body. So this is one line for the head and then another line for the body. Yeah, and I think what it does is it gets you into a different way of thinking that is more connected to your subconscious. So if you're an intuitive person, that can be very helpful. And here's some more drawings from reference. Yeah, just looking at people and trying to capture them. I've gotten to the point that I can't really tell in all of them which ones were from reference and which ones from imagination. I think this one is probably from imagination. This one looks like it's from reference. This one looks like it's from imagination. So, yeah, I don't know if that's a good thing. I guess maybe that's a good thing if you can't tell from reference or imagination, but that either means your imagination is good or your ability to observe from reference is bad. So I guess all these are also imagination. Okay. So I'm working a lot more on shading with the pen as opposed to using the brush pen. My brush pen was just, or not brush pen, water brush. It was having a lot of problems, and yeah, so I figure, well, it tended to just keep drying out, and I had trouble with getting more ink in. And I've gone through a bunch of those brush pens, so I've started to use them less. I don't know. They seem fine right in the beginning, and then they kind of go downhill from there, but I don't know if it's also the water I'm using. Because if your water has any kind of particles in it, those can clog the, I don't know what it's called, the ink thing, the reservoir, I'm not sure. But yeah, so here I'm just, practicing circles. I think it's a pretty good way, if you're not, like what happens when you color with any wash, like with the ink wash, or if you use watercolor or anything like that, what happens is you're kind of breaking down a form into something easier for the brain to pick up on. So when you just have an empty line, like if I just had lines and then blank space and then lines, what happens is it gets a bit difficult for your brain to distinguish what's what. I mean, not super difficult, obviously, but by putting circles, filling in the spaces, it isolates these shapes, and that's the same thing that filling with color does. It has nothing to do with the fact that it's circles, it's just has to do with the fact that you're filling in shapes to, like filling in space so your brain's not looking at negative space and trying to understand what's what. So for instance, here I didn't, and then it's a bit harder to take in all of this information, even though it's not like hard, it's just harder than this where it feels like, oh, okay, each part is more separated. So it's just a trick that may or may not help you, but it does help me. So maybe it'll come in handy. I don't think this was a good day at all. These look terrible. Trying to do like bent torsos from imagination. I understand I'm really giving them a tiny waist and exaggerating this. To that, I just have to say I'm dealing with shapes. Look at the face. It's not a real face. The way things are, the size of the eyes, the size of the nose, the size of the mouth. And so when you screw with the body, you have to do it in a similar way as you've done with the head. So it all becomes shapes in the end. So there's no type of social commentary of what should be a body or what shouldn't be or anything like that. It's just, I'm just thinking about shapes here. So yeah, more pushing poses. This one I like a lot. This one kind of. This one, I guess this must be from reference, I suppose. Looks pretty stiff. Usually when I see the stiff ones, they're more likely from reference. And then I keep having to remind myself to stretch my ovals. I've mentioned this before, but like I can't say don't because that implies that there is a right way of doing it. But for me anyway, I do better off like very pushed ovals and ellipses as opposed to like more circly ones and things that fit in squares more easily. I seem to work better with things that fit in rectangles or I think they're called parallelograms. So yeah, this is kind of extreme, I suppose, but probably from reference. And yeah. All right, so here I was trying to think of more of some kind of scene, I guess, but not really. I'm very bad at these things. Like, oh, maybe a person's doing something. What could they be doing? Maybe they're holding something up. But really what I'm focused on more is just getting proportions and anatomy. And that's why it's so... I feel like if you focus on one thing and really put all your attention into it, then you will improve much faster. And I'm not putting all my attention into these just because... I am at the time, but I'm not like working the whole day on this because I have other, I have to teach and stuff, and there's other things that come up that prevent me from drawing all day. But when I am drawing, I try to really focus on things like shapes and proportions right now, because I know that if I do, it's going to pay off. So here I was thinking about how most people, you start with pencil and then you do a drawing and then you use ink afterwards and then erase the pencil. And I thought, what if you do it the other way around? What if you draw all in ink? Because I mean, I draw in ink all the time, so I don't really need to worry about erasing. I guess it's not, I mean, I wish I could at times, but it's not a huge thing that I do. So I thought, okay, draw in ink first and then use pencil. And I'm just using a mechanical pencil here. I think it's got either 2B or 3B lead. Those are the ones I prefer. And I'm just shading with it. I'm not sure if it's good or not. It is what it is. I mean, it looks pretty ugly with this pen line because it's a different color, and then you've got the gray against the purpley color, but I'm not sure. So here I'm working more on the empresses again. I like how much bullshit you can get away with, like just headdresses and weird things. These types of things are just basic graphic design things, you know, like you make a box and then if you had a circle, how small would it need to be that you still have like big, medium, small relationships? Same with this, big, small, medium, big, small, medium, big, small, medium. I don't know if it matters much, but it's things where I think of, like in this, for instance, this is the big shape, this is the medium shape, the trim, and then these little flourishes are the small shapes. So, yeah. And then these, I prefer to these ones, just these small little empresses. I think when you work small, you can get ideas out much better than when you work like bigger like this. So here, more empressy things, trying to think in terms of like boxes. They were all just a collection of boxes. What would the shapes look like? And then also, you know, abstracting them, because I do think about abstractions a lot. I feel like if I was to do this empress thing, it's not really a... So let me explain a bit about the psychology. So what happened when I saw the empress drama that I mentioned in the last episode is I noticed that I was kind of interested in it. It was resonating with me. And then I saw like, well, okay, what is it about these? And the empresses felt very dominant, very maybe beyond emotions or emotionally a bit distant, very decorative, more like an art piece than a human, which maybe sounds bad. And but again, it's just letting you know what was my thoughts. And it's like, well, yeah, okay. So this is sort of a representation of an ideal of beauty. It's focused more on decoration. There's not really much in terms of a person behind it. And I have these two poles. One is towards faces and people and expressions and character and like a real person. And the other is to, especially with women, it's towards this sort of abstract ideal, almost like a graphic representation of a thing and not so much a person. And so I realized like, oh, the empresses have a lot of those qualities. And in my head, I don't necessarily see humans. I mean, I don't see anything, but I mean, I don't feel like they necessarily have to be human. They're sort of otherworldly or something that doesn't exist in a way. And so when I have certain elements like these things, see how they're floating? It's because there's almost a rejection of what exists in the world, just trying to create something that is not of this world. And so that's kind of the thought process. And so the Empress thing is sort of a connection between, all right, so you're moving towards this thing, whereas already by this point, they seem a bit more alien. And then by this point, they're getting much more alien, maybe a bit of makeup and stuff. And this is starting to leave the human realm even more. So it's, and then this guy, he's just, he's not human. I don't know. That's just a bit of psychological analysis, I guess. I mean, that's not the analysis. It's like, well, why are you attracted to emotionally distant things? And then it just goes into things I'd rather not talk about. All right. So I kind of like how stretched the neck is, but it doesn't work with the body. I don't feel. It feels like this face is one thing, and then this is all another thing. Some kind of lame superhero guy. Triangles, sharps, trying to make everything sharp. All right, so yeah, it looks like this is a pretty bad day. So here it's better with the torso, the breast area, because there's a degree of three-dimensionality, whereas with this it looks very flat because this is not sitting on the rib cage properly, so that's not good, whereas this is much better, have the thing sitting on a rib cage. Although this should probably be moved over quite a bit. You would see more of the side plane of the torso. So here I'm just drawing kind of, again, sort of scenes. This guy charging towards this guy, I guess. And then some guy, maybe he attacked and he blocked it with a shield. And a bird flying. That is my favorite thing on this page. Okay, I don't know. I was trying to do more mech things, sort of, and it's bad. I'm not looking at reference. I'm not thinking about it properly. I'm just trying to do things from imagination because it seems easier. Like if I look at reference, it becomes too academic and I lose interest and I become very stiff. So I feel like, well, if I can figure it out as basic shapes and then translate it and maybe learn some stuff, maybe that would help, but I'm not sure. I like it much better on this girl where, I don't know, kind of, I guess they seem like ears on this a little bit, or decorative things, but these are all, pretty bad. But it seems I didn't really stop. I still wanted to close my figures, and I feel like personally it's a bit too soon, but it is something that I need to deal with. This looks pretty bad, but I like this one. It's much more simple shapes, and this is almost working. That looks okay. All right, so here I was really focused on dragons. I used to draw dragons a lot when I was a kid, like early teens and stuff. And I mean, not a ton, but I would draw them fairly often. And I hadn't for tons of years, so occasionally I'll draw a dragon. So I thought, okay, let's deal with dragons. Don't really like these. I'm thinking a lot about shapes again, trying to make appealing shapes with a lot of negative space compared to the positive space. This one is like, yeah, but this kind of weakens it because honestly, I can't really tell you. I guess it feels like a recessed lower jaw that feels a bit weak, but just the shape doesn't feel strong to me. This one's, yeah. But then this one does. So this one feels the best on the page, and I don't know if it's something you pick up on as well. But when I look at this, for instance, it just feels like a unfinished or a inelegant shape, and this being much more simplified feels better. I like how small the features are on this head and even how small the head is on the body, and it's almost like everything is, what do you call it, like a Fibonacci spiral where you start big and then you go smaller and smaller, kind of like that. Like a fractal almost. Here, not really working, trying more dragons. I was thinking probably a lot about Bahamut in Final Fantasy VII. This one's more like Leviathan. And then I realized, okay, I don't know what the hell I'm doing with dragons, so I thought about dinosaurs and birds, because, well, birds and dinosaurs are already kind of related. So I tried to do a T-Rex skull, which, god damn it. And then just some other skulls, trying to understand bird skulls and, dinosaur skulls. And then trying to get like dragon skulls and think about what would a dragon skull look like if these are the dinosaur ones. And this one's based more on a dinosaur, and this one's based more on a bird. So this one is the bird skull that I did from a study from reference, and then this one is translated into more of a dragon type thing. So I don't know. I guess the thing with drawing these is I feel like if I'm not really interested, I don't have the time to get good at it. So I need to find things that I'm interested in. But by the same token, if I am interested in dragons, then it is something I probably should spend more time on. Still working on proportions. I guess you see a lot of the same things. But this is really what I wanted to show with this series. This Pointy Chin series is not the glamour and how aren't I an exceptional artist, but just, how much of the boring mileage it takes before you get something. Because each time, not every single time, but along the way, it is getting slightly better. It is getting slightly more towards a single thing. The shapes are getting better. It's more consistent in ways. Another Empress type figure. So I've really deviated from whatever was from the drama, but more just treating it like abstract shapes. And here, thinking about backs. How would I draw the back? Not really happy with this. Again, super skinny waist. This is, again, just for shapes. To get like bigger shape, more middle shape, smaller shape, medium, and then bigger again. Nothing much special. Alright, here I'm struggling a lot. It feels like a bad day for drawing. And then here, I thought, let me do studies of Xenogears, because my wife started playing Xenogears, which is a game for PlayStation, the first PlayStation, PlayStation 1, and I really liked it. And this is the artist, Kunihiko Tanaka. And so I just did some studies from that, trying to get, I guess, the sense of things, of what they're doing that I'm not doing. And they're this artist is very good at like these type of decorative things, I think much better than me. But I did realize that I played probably in grade 8 or 9 maybe, Xenogears, so it's something that I think it did influence me quite a bit more than I realized. But I don't care much for any of these faces. Maybe this one's okay and this one. I'm much more consistent with like girls, it seems. Not in these cases, so I guess maybe that's not true. Maybe I just draw them more. So proportions. This thing is okay in terms of shape. So I'm thinking, well, that's all right. Kind of got it. I'm wondering if I drew these. Yeah, it looks like I drew these with pencil first to get a basic idea. So kind of the opposite. This is more what you're supposed to do. So I did a very light pencil line to block in the shapes, and then I broke them down. I've noticed personally I tend to get much more stiff when I do this. I don't feel the lines are as strong, so it's not really working for me so far. But we'll keep moving on. Some months are better than others, and unfortunately, I feel bad because I feel like, well, I'm not showing you the best thing, and I want to impress people, and I want to show them something cool and entertaining at least. But I think I'm going to have to sacrifice that for just being honest and showing you, well, this is just what it's like. There's no I can't be impressive all the time, but hopefully you're still getting something out of it. And so I hope it helped, and thanks for watching.